Welcome and thanks for joining. My name is John from the Worldwide Business Markets team here at Apple, and I'm joined by Nick and Yolanda to take you through everything that's new for business from WWDC22. Now, as you may know, in early June, Apple hosts the Worldwide Developers Conference so that customers and developers can learn the latest about each of our core platforms. And WWDC always brings together the global Apple developer community and provides them with insights and previews into new versions of tools, technologies, and frameworks that help them build the really best apps they can for business. And this week was extra special just given the return to an in-person experience at Apple Park. Developers, media, other special guests were invited to watch the keynote at Cafe Max and the State of the Union alongside Apple engineers and other experts. And they got to explore the all-new Developer Center at Tantau 14 across the street, as well as take in some of Apple Park's landscape and architecture in guided tours. When thinking about enterprise and business customers, we know that these announcements are always really key for improving everything that we do for employees, for IT, and also for developers in the business world. So let's get started just by talking about what's new for end users and employees, both in terms of hardware and software announcements. The first up is really M2. M2 represents the start of the next generation of Apple Silicon. It takes the industry-leading performance per watt of M1 and extends that even further with an 18% faster CPU, 35% faster GPU, and a 40% faster neural engine. It also delivers up to 50% more memory bandwidth and up to 24 gigabytes of fast unified memory. The power-efficient performance of M2 maximizes performance while minimizing power consumption. And just like last year, in thinking about some of the all-new Macs that Apple Silicon can enable, M2 enabled us to completely reimagine the MacBook Air. It supercharges MacBook Air with an all-new design, one that's strikingly thin from every angle. It has the same durable all-aluminum unibody enclosure, and it's actually 20% smaller by volume than the previous generation. It comes in 4 beautiful finishes: silver, space gray, midnight, and starlight. And we think these are going to be really, really compelling for business customers based on everything that we've added since the previous generation. It's not often we get to say that a new product is thinner, lighter, faster, with a bigger display, a better camera, an improved speaker system, and the same all-day great battery life that customers are used to. And all of this in true MacBook Air form in a silent, fanless design. So we know that business customers are going to be really, really excited about this. And MacBook Air joins the lineup of MacBook Air with M1, MacBook Air with M2, and MacBook Pro 13-inch, which was also updated with the M2 chip. All 3 of these represent an enormous opportunity to take Mac even further inside of your organization and expand it to even more knowledge workers as you think about growing the potential for Mac inside of a business. Now let's talk about software. We previewed macOS Ventura, which launches this fall, and it delivers new features like continuity camera that improve the remote meeting experience that business customers have spent a lot of time in over the last couple of years. And this is with a device that customers already have in their pocket. You know, it's using iPhone's camera to radically improve the quality of video conferencing without requiring an additional external accessory. We also introduced Stage Manager, which refocuses the Mac multitasking experience so that users can get more work done. macOS Ventura also includes a number of key updates to apps like system settings, improvements to Spotlight, and even improvements to Mail and Safari that we'll cover a little bit later. iPadOS got a massive update this year, also bringing Stage Manager to the iPad experience. But with Stage Manager, iPad can now fully extend to an external display and uses things like trackpad, mouse, and keyboard support that we added in previous years, now in a completely new perspective. We feel that many business customers have asked for this functionality over the years. If you think about knowledge workers that are given, kind of a standard external display configuration and want to live on iPad 100% of the time, this is really going to help them unlock that. We also added a number of new display modes, both reference mode and an expanded scaled model for iPad Pro that allows even more screen real estate on the same size screen. And then we made a number of improvements to apps across the system that give desktop class functionality, like the ability to customize toolbars or change file extensions in the Files app. Lots of things that we know have been top requests from businesses as well. For iOS, the theme is really refocusing the experience on the lock screen and keeping work front and center. We've redesigned the lock screen, added the ability for widgets, customizable backgrounds that can be tied to a focus mode. And we've also extended the focus system to allow for filters in apps that hide distracting content. And so this can get really powerful when it's all used together. You could imagine swiping to a work-specific lock screen, kicking off your work focus, and then seeing things like personal email accounts hidden in the Mail app. And that's all now possible when you think about the move to iOS 16. We made a number of improvements to on-device intelligence, live text, visual lookup, also dictation. And of course, we also talked about accessibility features in this area as well. Now, across all platforms, we made a number of improvements to general productivity and collaboration that we know are going to help users get more work done. And the first was a preview of a new app called Freeform, which is going to give users a shared canvas to collaborate on many different types of media. And you can see here also providing strong integration into the Messages app and with FaceTime to really deliver a high quality shared user experience. And we think this will be really big in small business, maybe in medium-sized businesses as well that rely on iCloud and managed Apple IDs, even in enterprise. We added support for FaceTime handoff so that users can more seamlessly switch between devices during a FaceTime call. And like I mentioned earlier, Mail got a massive upgrade with improvements to search, the ability to unsend or delay the send of a message, schedule the send of a message. And so these are things that we know businesses have asked for too, and they're done in the client versus on the server like some of our competitors. So that's an update on everything that's new for end users. And I'll now turn it over to Nick to talk through what's new for IT.
Cool. Thanks, John. Next, let's take a look at what's new for managing Apple devices. In addition to the great new features for end users, there are exciting updates for IT teams. This includes new deployment options, identity integrations, and new security controls. Let's start with deployment. There are expanded deployment options for IT to make the onboarding experience for employees even better, starting with adding devices to Apple Business Manager. As we know, zero-touch deployment is the best way for IT teams to deploy Apple devices directly to users. It automatically enrolls devices into their MDM solution so that IT teams don't have to physically touch them. With iOS and iPadOS 16, Apple Configurator for iPhone now has the ability to add iPhone and iPad devices directly to Apple Business Manager. This works exactly like you'd expect, just like adding a Mac. Simply hold your iPhone running Configurator over the animation, and the device will connect to the internet and add itself to Apple Business Manager. Next, zero-touch deployment requires internet access during Setup Assistant in order for the device to check in with the MDM solution and receive its initial configuration. An internet connection could previously be bypassed. So, in order to help organizations to make sure that they go through the correct setup process, Mac computers with Apple Silicon or Apple T2 chips or higher are now going to be able to require internet during Setup Assistant. The first time a Mac running macOS Ventura is set up and connected to the internet, it's acknowledged as owned by an organization. And as long as the device remains registered to that organization, whenever it's erased, Setup Assistant will now require a network connection in order to proceed. And in iOS and iPadOS 16, you'll now be able to install applications during zero-touch deployment. This is before the user even gets to their home screen. Any apps that you have assigned will automatically get installed during this process. This ensures that users will be able to get to their home screen with all of their apps ready to go. Next, let's look at identity. This spring, Apple Business Manager added federated authentication to Google Workspace as the identity provider. This joins the existing Microsoft Azure AD support. IT teams can use federated authentication to allow users to sign in with their Google or Azure AD username and password, making it easy for users to access Apple services. Here's what it looks like. When the user goes to sign in with their Apple ID, the domain is recognized, and a standard Google Workspace sign-in window is presented so that they can sign in with the same password they use for other Google Workspace services. Of course, if you're using Azure Active Directory, you'll see an Azure AD sign-in window instead. This fall, our updates bring even more identity integrations across our platforms. Coming in macOS Ventura, Platform SSO will use the SSO extension to extend to the macOS login window. This will allow users to sign in with their identity provider password to unlock their Mac. Platform SSO makes using your identity provider at the macOS login window possible by making tokens from the login available to third-party SSO extensions or the built-in Kerberos extension. This enables users to sign in once at the login window and then be automatically signed into all of their apps and websites. Next, Enrollment SSO is designed to make user enrollment, our enrollment method specifically designed for BYOD, flow faster and easier by reducing the number of sign-ins required. This is accomplished by installing an identity app that is used to handle the repeated authentications during this process. A native app authentication process provides a much richer experience for end users and more authentication options for IT. And Sign In with Apple was introduced a few years ago to allow users to quickly and privately sign in to third-party apps and websites using their personal Apple ID. Coming this fall, Sign In with Apple will now work with managed Apple IDs. And IT teams will be able to control which apps can be used with Sign In with Apple right within Apple Business Manager. And there are new strong security controls for IT to make sure their devices are secure and updated. First, rapid security response. iOS, iPadOS, and macOS all introduce a new mechanism to ship security fixes to users more frequently. This allows IT to get important security improvements to their devices even faster. Note, this isn't a standard software update. It's independent of software updates. These improvements can be applied automatically between normal updates. Next, with devices being more distributed than ever, security needs to be evolving beyond a firewall or VPN. To address this, Apple has introduced Managed Device Attestation. This feature is designed with zero trust principles in mind. Managed Device Attestation cryptographically validates that a device is legitimate and is legitimate for a specific institution. Next, Accessory Security for macOS aims to protect our customers from close access attacks. Supported on portable Macs with Apple Silicon, the initial configuration is to ask the user to allow new accessories even when unlocked. Approved accessories can connect to a locked Mac for up to 3 days. If you attach an unknown accessory to a locked Mac, you will be prompted to unlock it. Now, to help IT get ready for all of these new changes, AppleSEED for IT provides access to beta software along with in-depth beta documentation and release notes that are focused on IT admin workflows. Make sure you visit appleseed.apple.com/IT to access this program for free using a managed Apple ID that's associated with your organization. Download the betas and start testing enterprise workflows today. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Yolanda.
Great, thanks, Nick. This is such an exciting time of year for Apple developers with so many new announcements around developer tools and frameworks. I'll be taking everyone through a high-level overview of key updates announced this year to our developer platform. Let's start with our developer tools. Xcode continues to help developers build apps more quickly and more efficiently. This year at WWDC, Apple announced that Xcode Cloud is now available to all developers in the Apple Developer Program. Xcode Cloud is a continuous integration and delivery service built into Xcode and hosted in the cloud. And with a flexible subscription model, developer teams of all sizes can sign up for the plan that works best for them. With Swift, we announced several enhancements to improve concurrency, readability, customization, and performance, all exciting features that will further streamline the developer experience. And finally, with Swift UI, Apple incorporated a lot of the top feature enhancements requested from developers, like app navigation, new custom layouts, and Swift charts. Earlier, we heard about all of the great productivity and collaboration features for users. Of course, to make all of these great features possible in apps, there are so many new APIs for developers to take advantage of. Let's cover a few of these new frameworks and APIs. We introduced new ways for developers to take the user experience beyond their apps and integrate features into the system experience on Apple devices. Developers can build widgets into the lock screen with WidgetKit and create live activities to help people stay on top of things in real time, all from the lock screen. With the Messages Collaboration API, developers can bring their app's collaboration experience directly into Messages and FaceTime. And with the App Intents framework, developers can enable their apps to be used with Siri and shortcuts without any additional user setup needed. We also heard earlier about incredible new productivity features on iPad apps to help users multitask, increase efficiency, and customize their workflows. Developers can now build in these new features into their iPad apps with support for external displays, custom navigation bars, inline search, and find and replace. We think business and pro users will love using these features on their iPad. We also introduced a new API powered by ARKit. On iPhone and iPad, Room Plan utilizes the camera and LiDAR scanner to create a 3D floor plan of a room, including key characteristics such as dimensions and types of furniture. Imagine the possibilities with workflows across apps in industries like architecture and design, retail and hospitality, and real estate. And finally, we announced that VisionKit was expanding with 2 new APIs. The Live Text API unlocks the ability to analyze image content, allowing users to interact with text and QR codes found in photos and pause video frames, as well as the ability to provide quick actions so users can easily take on relevant data. And the Data Scanner API unlocks the ability to analyze a live camera feed. It dramatically simplifies text and barcode ingestion for users. Developers can add any overlays or custom controls that tailor the live camera experience to the needs of their app. This is a really useful feature for enterprise apps that are built for back-of-warehouse inventory management, pick and pack delivery services, and point-of-sale kiosks. We are particularly excited to see this feature live, as it was directly influenced by the requests and feedback received from enterprise developers. We covered only the highlights coming out of this week's announcements today. There's so much more that was covered within the conference itself, with hundreds of sessions available on demand for free on the developer app and website. We encourage you and your customers to tune into sessions for more details on any of these new announcements across our tools, frameworks, and APIs. So to close out, I'd like to end with a few steps to encourage customers to get started. Point them to the developer app, as I mentioned, to watch sessions and learn more about the announcements we covered today. Download the beta through AppleSEED for IT and have developers explore the new SDKs. And finally, provide feedback in the lead up to all of the releases this fall. Thanks for joining us today. With exciting new productivity and collaboration features for users, IT features to make it easier than ever to manage Apple devices, and powerful new developer tools and APIs, we are so excited to see what our customers do with our products and platform in business.